Tell me, what does loyalty mean to you? All cultures have a concept of it, some going so extreme as to link one's own life to their loyalty. The end of one would mean the end of another. Many kindred care deeply for this concept, but there is one that goes above and beyond, to make order and obedience clear and absolute. I speak of the warlocks of the night, Clan Tremere. They are quite famous for being blood mages, masters of the thaumaturgic arts and a crucial member of Camarilla society, as well as any other knightly society, of course. Some would even go as far as to say that you will need their help in order to truly survive in these nights, and there might even be some truth to that, even if it was them that made that the truth. But it's quite hard not to see their logic behind it. If you know other people have magic, you almost certainly need it, right? See, the Tremere have woven themselves into the society of the night, in every faction and order that is multi-clanned, and for a clear reason. Although they are not the only clan to know blood magic, none have perfected it to the point that they have. Their control and mastery over blood magic is so total that you may think it impossible for someone outside the clan to learn such things. Which is a lie, spread by them, and a very good one if you ask me. But something they should be equally known for is just how controlling they are amongst their own ranks. They are credited as the most organized clan, and this is correct. The pyramid is the name of this social structure, and it is as oppressive and domineering as the word would imply. A sire has near complete control over their progeny. This continues even after they are considered free in the wider Camarilla society. You never really escape the pyramid, no matter how hard you may try. Of course, the goal for all of them is to achieve more in the pyramid, to advance up above them, to gain a new rank and title that puts you just one brick above your current position. And there always just so happens to be at least one for you to strive for. The vacancies are of course artificial, to keep you loyal to the clan as a whole. One is of course allowed to break the rules and pursue their own ambitions, but there is a promotion available, and you do want to be the one to get it, don't you? This system manifests in each city as something known as the Chantry. This is the local building that all Tremere of one city dwell within, and almost all of them live here. The ranks and positions are held here, as well as any rituals and performances. All members of the clan study, practice, and of course slumber here. Their most coveted role is not that of their primogen, though. That is a very high role, though. It is usually the right hand, in fact, but the one that they strive for the most is the master of the Tremere of that city, and is called the Regent. But not all kindred see eye to eye, and the warlocks, as organized as they are no exception. And so many Tremere with the same thoughts and ideas on how things should be run, as well as many groups that study in one field or have some other form of commonality, form what is known as the houses. These are small sub-factions within a chantry. Most will have at least one of these, but never more than, say, 4. Some of them can have some ridiculous magi names too. The House of the Blue Sun, the Fallen Order of the Hand of whatever, and so and such. Anything you can imagine to be sufficiently mage-like is usually how they organize themselves. Sometimes they don't even realize how pretentious they are being, too. These houses usually keep to their own, and are sometimes fully encouraged by the Tremere as a whole. This is in fact a good way to ensure loyalty, while also letting one pursue their own wants. Of course, they have to be ringed in every now and again to make sure that their goals align with the clans as a whole. It is near unheard of for a Tremere to leave this structure. I'm not saying that it's never been attempted. I'm saying that it's unheard of. Those who might try to do this are usually blood hunted for a crime that I'm sure all of us have actually already committed. Or they come back into the Tremere's loving arms. At least that's the official story, for that person is never actually seen again to confirm it. The Tremere get what they want in the end, that you can always rest assured. And they have always been like this. It springs from their very dark origins. You may in fact be familiar with one of their monikers, the older ones, the usurpers. For you see, they were actually a group of mages far before they were kindred. They stole the gift of the blood, and the long story of how they went about this is actually quite fascinating. It's one of the main reasons that they are so hated by many of the older kindred. So to begin, every clan has what is called an antediluvian. The word actually means before the flood, and all of them are as old as you would expect, except for one. The Lord Tremere was once a mage, and for the sake of clarity, I have a lot of opinions about the Magi, and so to spare you a lecture, I will simply make this brief. See, his order once believed that they were somehow losing their magic, and so all of them searched desperately to find a way to keep it. In the end, they found out about a small bloodline of Tzimisce that use a type of blood sorcery, known as Kuldonic sorcery. Don't ask me what that is, it's a very long story. But, intrigued by this, he investigated them more, and came to the idea that embracing himself and his fellow mages would be the best course of action. And so him and a close circle kidnapped some of these Tzimisce and found a way to forcefully embrace themselves, in a bizarre ritual. This process was strange, and the exact details have been lost to time. Whatever they did made them a unique clan, whole unto themselves. But once they did this, they learned that there's something very unique about how kindred's interaction with magic works, in that it doesn't at all. Once they were embraced, all of the magic they had previously learned was gone, inert, and they had no access to the powers they once knew, and had to start again from scratch. This, of course, made all the other mages hate them. Eventually, however, they learned that kindred do in fact have access to two types of magic. Blood magic, known as thaumaturgy, and shadow magic, and that can take many forms, but they focused on the former. Now, blood magic had existed before the Tremere, but none did so with the idea of mastery, and combined by the fact that they were mages beforehand, made how they approached acquiring it completely different to anyone before them. But back then, they were absolutely hated by everyone. For all of these experiments with the blood they did, they had no allies, and they were yet to commit their two greatest sins. See, they were in no way fighters, and many of the kindred that wanted to kill them were. So they needed to think of a way to get around this issue, and so they sought to create fighters. They were not content with stealing the embrace, so they kidnapped even more kindred, tortured them, and mutated them, in order to force them to work for them. They stunted their minds and thickened their skin to the point where it was made of stone, making them ideal fighters. What they created were the gargoyles, and these allowed the Tremere to defend themselves fully, a fighting force that makes even some of the most sturdy kindred worried. Of course, eventually, closer to the more modern knights, they rebelled, forcing the Tremere to wipe out most of them, but some are still around. Some are even still loyal to the Tremere, though they are quite rare. But their biggest sin was committed by Lord Tremere himself. See, when he embraced himself, he wasn't actually that powerful. By the time, he was actually quite weak. But when he learned of the acts of diablerie and of the antediluvians, he sought one out to devour them. Unfortunately, he picked the only wrong option. There is a clan known as the Celebri. They are a very interesting bunch. One I will have to go into great detail on another day. For now, just know that they are the clan that have 3 eyes. But their antediluvian, Saulot, was beloved by all kindred, because he was the only antediluvian who was actually good at heart. Genuinely an earnest person. There is not a single account of him being unlikable. And Tremere destroyed him. Of course, these old wounds faded with time, as did Lord Tremere himself, Notably at the Convention of Fawns is where the Tremere were stopped being hunted constantly and were actually accepted as part of kindred society, mostly because at that point all of the original mages who performed these acts were long dead. Now they are integral and have convinced all that blood magic is needed for them to survive, and they have made that true. Of course, their powers are what have given them the greatest leg up in achieving their acceptance, and so I think it is time to discuss these, for they have the disciplines of Auspex, Dominate, and of course blood sorcery. And so I shall detail exactly how they use these powers, starting with the one they are the most famed for. Blood sorcery, also known as thaumaturgy, is the core of their power, and allows them to do some rather ridiculous things. How they go about doing it is a whole bizarre ordeal of magics and rituals, but I assure you the results are worth it. For I would like to just list some of the things that they can do. Turning their own blood acidic, learning everything about someone just from drinking a drop of their blood, causing one's own vitae to lose its power or gain more power, forcing one's blood to leave their body so that they can drink it from afar, or making someone's blood boil and explode in agonizing pain. And all of this is just if they have no preparation time. If they did, I assure you, the list would be near limitless. For an example of their insanity, there was once a house of Tremere that tried to go rogue, so to speak. They were called the Ravens of Skaratesh, whatever that means, and the Regent asked me to deal with them. So I dispatched a team of elite ghouls to hunt them down, and let me just tell you, they did not have a good time. Every door handle burned their skin to the point that they lost it. A gargoyle was stationed in the grand hall and ripped apart 3 of my men. The floors constantly dropped into pools of boiling blood, and the whole building was structured in an MC Escher madhouse that was constantly changing. In the end, I just burned down the whole building. The Regent was not happy with me, but I deemed it necessary. I lost a few good men, but I did not want to deal with it anymore. We had to make up a whole story about a gas leak for the mortals. They bought it in the end. Another power at the Tremere's disposal is Auspex, and information gathering is what they mostly use it for, letting them see just past things they should in order to learn how to more effectively use their magics against you. There are also a lot of things that are invisible to the naked eye. Usually these are magically gifted, and so the Tremere almost need to have this in order to not lose themselves to an unknown object. It is quite important. My mind wanders to one Tremere who has mastered this power. In fact, my mind wanders to her quite often. Delilah is the name she goes by, but there is no way that is a real one. She is even older than myself, and I suspect she is of the Celtic peoples of Britain before the Romans invaded. Regardless, she has always fascinated me. She never looks at you, only past you, as if you are not even truly there, yet she somehow knows everything about you there is to know, even the things you might not know yourself. This ethereal witch, whose beauty is as present as her influence, has her fingers wrapped in many pies, yet never shows it. Truly a power player who hides in the shadows. But back to the topic at hand. The last power they use is Dominate, and they use this mostly to clear the minds of those that have witnessed more than they should have. And they are nowhere near as skilled as other clans in this, say the Ventrue for example. But they do things that some just cannot. For example, swaying the minds of other supernatural beings is much harder for a Ventrue, and easier for a Tremere. That's not to say it is easy, it is still quite hard, but for them it is more possible. The sad reality is that they use it on each other more than anyone else. The local regent I talked about before is called Edward Garant, and he is a real piece of work, let me tell you. I have seen the man use Dominate constantly, in fact, every time I have seen him, but I've never seen him use it on someone who isn't a Tremere. He only seems to like to do so on people below him on the pyramid, forcing them to obey his orders even if they were going to regardless. His power is grand, and so I cannot simply ignore him, but he is not one I am fond of, I shall assure you. The clan of warlocks is always one to keep in mind. They never take to the grand stage, and are very comfortable being on the sidelines during displays of power, standing behind the one on the throne. But do not disregard them. Their powers are vast and alien, and their reach is longer than you would think. Thank you for listening to my tales. I am the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveller, have a good day.